We are live. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, which is a day of the week. I'm Duane Whitmer, and here's the weekly Whitmer Wednesday. Really low on topics this week because tax season is kicking my ass. So we're going to talk about a topic that I like to revert to when I get bored, and that is the Second Amendment, guns, and gun control by nature. So we're going to dive right in this week. We're going to talk about why gun control is a topic that comes up all the time, the point of gun control, and why I don't give a shit about gun control. So really, we'll break it down into three generic topics. As you guys have tuned in before know, in the weekly Whitmer Wednesday, I spent about 10-15 minutes talking about topics. I'm starting my timer right now for 15 minutes. I'll keep these short because no one wants to hear anyone talk for 2 hours. It's just boring and pointless. So this week we're talking about gun control, gun policy, the Second Amendment, the future of the Second Amendment, what I think of the Second Amendment, what I think of gun control, why do they try to enforce gun control, where does gun control rely on the defiance agenda, and quite frankly, my opinions, I guess. So first things first is understanding why gun control is key. Gun control is key because the average American is lazy. And so you have situations occurring where, you see gun violence, school shootings, mass shootings, you're seeing people shoot each other. And the average American, instead of saying, hey, we should analyze socioeconomically, mentally, we should look at kind of the foundation of why this is happening and address it from a foundational level, they say, oh no, shooting, what do now? My feelings, I'm afraid, somebody should do something. And instead of them doing something, because that's harder to do, they want someone else, they want to outsource their problems to someone else. And so politicians, like the parasitic pieces of shit they are, say, oh, this looks like a job for me. I can get this person's vote by appealing to their laziness, ignorance, and lack of common sense and say, I support gun control. It'll solve all your problems. Give me your time, give me your vote, give me your money, give me your resources. So win-win-win for the politicians. They get money, they get votes. So politicians then say we need to do gun control because it's the government. New York State Governor Kathy Hochul loves to say this. It's the government's job to keep you safe. Ignoring the fact that the largest mass murderer in the world is in fact government. Ignoring the fact that government and centralized government, to be specific, is responsible for 100+ million deaths in the last century. Ignoring the fact that some of the biggest mass murderers and purveyors of violence is in fact the government. Somehow the government's going to keep you safe. Stupid idea, stupid thought. Ignoring that, look no further than the Supreme Court decision that was passed after Stoneman Douglas, which said the government actually has no moral or ethical liability to protect you. There actually is no government reason to protect you. Am I still live? Because I just got kicked off the internet. So the government has no duty to protect you. It's been decided by the courts. So Kathy Hochul saying the government's job is to protect you is pure bullshit. But it's her job to dupe the idiots into saying, I don't want to protect myself. I don't want to take care of myself. I don't want to defend myself. In typical progressive government central bureaucracy fashion, they find something people don't want to do because they're lazy or stupid, say they're going to do it, they get your votes, they get your money, problem solved. So you have this group of people who says, we government should do something. And so their answer is gun control, disarming people. Now, ignoring the fact that we have a great example of gun control not working, and actually not only gun control not working, but actually being a great example of the systemic racism that the left likes to push, is look no further than the New York State SAFE Act. The New York State SAFE Act has only done one thing really well. I shouldn't say well because it makes me sound like I'm proud of it, but the only thing the New York State SAFE Act has done is imprison minorities for victimless crimes. So really all gun control does is puts black people in jail for victimless crimes. That's it. Kathy Hochul's new gun control legislation she's passing. What are you going to see happen? You're going to see more police in the inner city, more people getting arrested for gun crimes or possession. Gun crimes, not even gun crimes, no victim. Unlawful possession of a gun, unlawful possession of a magazine, unlawful possession of something. There's no shots fired. There's no victim. It's just they have something that New York State deems unsafe. Granted, I deem the New York State government as unsafe, but no one gives a shit about that. So you have more black people and minorities going to jail for victimless crimes. So really that's kind of the epitome of, maybe I should get into one of these weeks, I should talk about the hypocrisy of the modern white liberal. And that's Kathy Hochul. She goes into the inner city and says, we're going to keep you safe. And the only way to do that is to put you in jail. So then she can go to the suburbs and say, oh, look, everyone's safer. It doesn't make any sense. It's a pretty big moral and intellect deficit by politicians that don't really understand how any of this works, but they don't really give a shit. They just care about winning re-election so that they can sell their influence to get more money and their friends can have jobs. Politicians don't give a shit about you. I mean, if you still think after the last 5 years that politicians actually give a shit about you, the stripper at the strip club doesn't love you. The bartender serving you alcohol doesn't like you. Your server doesn't doing it. They're being nice to get tips, just like politicians. Politicians are like the sex workers of politics. They'll tell you whatever you hear to get your money and your vote. It's simple as that. If you truly believe any of these politicians really care about you, or really think that you matter, I'm sorry. Santa Claus isn't real either, and you're an idiot. So you got these politicians using these opportunities to pass gun control, and you got these politicians using these opportunities to get more money. So then you say, well, Duane, what are you going to do about it? What's the solution? What's the answer? We got to vote for Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin's going to save the day. Lee Zeldin lost. The GOP will lose. And even the GOP in New York State. Look at the New York State Republican Senate response to the state of the state. They openly admitted that they're going to focus on illegal guns, which is guns not in compliance with the SAFE Act. The New York State Republican senators have openly admitted they're going to support gun control. If you think the GOP is coming to help you, you're better off just praying for Santa Claus, because it's the same thing. The New York State GOP has officially cucked out to the Dems. They've cucked out to the Democrats, and they will continue to enforce gun control, mostly because, well, Duane, why are you so mean to the Republican Party? Because the Republican Party is a grift, let's be honest. But also because they consistently and continuously cuck out to the anti-gun Democrats, knowing that they need to continue to support their jobs program. What's the Republican jobs program? Highway departments, police, and corrections. So why is the GOP going to cuck out to gun control? Because who's enforcing gun control? The police officers, and the police officers lean Republican. So they have to support their jobs program. God, it's not even hard to understand. This is like simple stuff. It's basic common sense. So the New York State GOP is officially cucked out to gun control. And we knew it was going to happen. I mean, Chris Jacobs, the guy I ran against in 2020, tried to push an air ban. He was a Republican. And all the Republicans said, we got to vote for Chris Jacobs because Nate McMurray's bad. Well, there you go. You fell for it. You were conned. Don't know what to tell you there. So you say, well, Duane, what is your answer? The answer is quite frankly quite simple. And it's to understand that we are in a soft civil war and we are in a battle for the country. And so you have to be willing to sacrifice and put people in uncomfortable positions. There's a reason why I'm not a back the blue police supporter. My simple question to you is, who's enforcing gun control? Is Kathy Hochul arresting people for violating the SAFE Act? Is Lee Zeldin arresting people for violating the SAFE Act? Is India Walton, if you're in Buffalo, is she arresting you? Are they kidding up and knocking on your door? It's not Kathy Hochul. She is sending the police. And that is the next frontier of this battle is Everyone likes to say, all these Republicans like to say, oh, Democrats hate the police. Oh, you're an idiot. Democrats love the police. Democrats need the police. Who's going to enforce the progressive left's policies? It's not going to be the politicians. It's not going to be their voters. It's not going to be their supporters. Who is enforcing these laws? That's where you focus your anger. And you tell the police, unlike the Senate GOP cucked out pussies supporting gun control because they want to suck off their police buddies, I'm not going to support you. Any officer supporting gun control is my enemy. It's simple as that. Any police officer enforcing the SAFE Act is my enemy. Simple as that. Any police officer enforcing unconstitutional laws is an enemy. The sooner you guys realize that and back that line, you're going to force them to make a decision. Now, I'm going to say a majority of them are going to make a decision you're not going to like. They're going to pick the paycheck over you guys. That's fine. But at least we can see who the real enemies are, who's on our side. Because I'm sick of these sheriffs and these policemen saying, oh, I'm not going to enforce the SAFE Act. And then they do. Sheriff Howard in Erie County. Erie County was like number 3 in the state in SAFE Act arrests. Even though our Republican county sheriff said, I'm not going to enforce the SAFE Act. Well, you were number 3 in enforcing the SAFE Act, so you're a piece of shit too. And you say, well, Duane, that's not very fair. That's not very nice. It isn't. I'm sorry. But that's unfortunately where we are. And that's why my big goal here is repealing qualified immunity and ending qualified immunity. It's simple as that. If police and other law enforcement officers and agents want to enforce the SAFE Act, if they want to enforce gun control, if they want to enforce unconstitutional laws, we should be able to sue them for violation of our rights. It's simple as that. And that's why I am 100% on board with repealing qualified immunity, and I am working to get it struck down. And a lot of people are going to get mad when I say this and say, well, you're not pro-cop. Yeah, police still paid by the government. They're still government employees. I'm not pro-government employee, period. But yeah, that's why I'm looking at repealing qualified immunity, making people think twice about, enforcing unconstitutional and victimless crimes. And you're going to say, well, Duane, what about the murders? You're going to get murdered. There's murderers. I'm not saying anything about murders, but I'm saying looking at the police incidents we have, a majority of them are started with enforcing victimless crimes. There was a shooting in Buffalo in March. Why did they pull the guy over? Tinted windows. Victimless crime, man. Stop enforcing bullshit. You look at George Floyd counterfeit bill, whole other issue, whatever. But you look at a lot of these instances where police are shooting people, and 90% of them are started with a victimless crime. Oh, his seatbelt. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Who gives a shit? Not my problem. You should wear a seatbelt. If you don't want to wear a seatbelt, fly out your windshield. I don't give a shit. You rolled a stop sign. Okay, who's harmed by that? Look, you should come to a complete stop and look both ways. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but really at the end of the day, who gives a shit? A lot of this can be prevented by people not enforcing and not giving a shit about victimless crimes. And then you're going to say, well, Duane, there's murderers. Murder is not a victimless crime, so don't worry, relax. And then I'll take it a step further. If you're afraid of gun violence, Second Amendment. Let's talk about Second Amendment. Buy a gun, get proficient with the gun, train with the gun. If someone tries to murder you, shoot them in the face. Problem solved. Oh, well, Duane, someone might come on my property and touch my butthole while I sleep. Lock your door. Buy a camera, buy a gun, shoot butthole toucher in the face. Problem solved. That's really what it boils down to, guys, is if you want to outsource your security to government, that's not a great idea. In my opinion, the role of the police department should be to respond to violent acts with force. That's really it. That's what I view the police department as. Now you're going to say, well, Duane, why don't we do this? Well, the reason why we don't do this is because think about this. If we reformed I hate the word reform, but let's use the word reform. If we reformed the police departments across the state into their role is to respond to violence with force. That is it. No road patrols, no checkpoints. They're not going to get your cat out of the tree. They're not going to bust you for going 42 and a 35. They're not going to get you for a taillight out. They're going to stop doing revenue generation. How many cops would you need? I can tell you this much. Hamburg could drop 35%, 50, 60% of their police force. And what happens? The government jobs program takes a shit. That is it. You have these laws on the books to pad the government jobs program so the Republican Party in New York can say, look, we're doing something. Our friends are getting jobs. We have the police. That's really all it boils down to. If you start to repeal these victimless laws, you will not need as many police. And I'll tell you a step further. Seeing a lot of these police officers in New York State, half of them can't touch their toes. Do you think that, Porky Pig over here is going to respond to something and chase you down and back you up if you're in danger? He probably hasn't fired his gun in 6 years. So no, that's it. Really, the Second Amendment boils down to buy a gun, learn how to use the gun, train with the gun, and be ready to take care of yourself. Stop relying on government to solve your problems. Stop relying on government to save your life. Stop relying on government to do all your, solve all your issues, and really just start taking care of it yourself. We're past the 15-minute mark. I could go on, but I don't want to keep going on. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. This probably ruffled some feathers. I understand that. But that's why I'm pushing to repeal qualified immunity. Any police officer that enforces the SAFE Act or enforces victimless crimes is not a friend. They're not an ally. They're not an acquaintance. They're not a person I want to be on my side. Any LEO that believes in enforcing the SAFE Act is a redcoat. So unfortunately, it's a lot of you guys, and I view it as now it's time for us to fight back. And if we repeal qualified immunity, we can start hammering these cops that are enforcing the SAFE Act. So that's what we're doing. And if New York does pass an end to qualified immunity, I'm looking forward to hammering the shit out of a lot of you guys that enforce the SAFE Act. So be ready for it. They'll be coming. So you guys have a good night. Have a good evening. Take care. Enjoy your night. I'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.